Good morning or afternoon, everybody. I was asked by Jess to put together a brief video overview of 2020 and looking ahead on behalf of the Pacific Coast Federation of Fishermen's Associations. So that is what I am doing. My name is Mike Conroy. I am the Executive Director of the Pacific Coast Federation of Fishermen's Associations. I took over this job in April of this year, right as the pandemic was hitting. So it has been a very interesting, brief history with the organization. I have both a commercial and recreational fishing background. I used to run sport boats many years ago, without going into too much detail. Had a 100-ton masters. I think I had 4 issues of that. In some time in between there, managed to go to law school, finished that, became a member of the California State Bar, practiced law for a while. Decided I didn't like that, went back commercial fishing, worked on in a number of different fisheries operating off the California coast. So I saw firsthand how fisheries operate, how the management systems are structured and how they work. And then saw that there was definitely a need for a voice for the fishing industry, opened up my own consulting company that's still in existence, serving other clients as well with my staff. And here I sit with PCFFA since last April. I have not been able to access our office yet. Our office is located right below the Golden Gate Bridge. Unfortunately, our office is a federal building, and out here in California, they only allow one person per floor. And obviously, they're going to be prioritizing giving folks with the federal government access. So I hope to get back into our office soon, hopefully when this pandemic is all said and done and we get to back to some sort of sense of normalcy, we'll be getting back there. So Pacific Coast Federation of Fishermen Associations, who are we? PCFFA is the largest and most active trade association of commercial fishermen and women on the West Coast. We are a broad coalition of harvesters and others who believe that there is strength in numbers. Our membership consists of a number of West Coast-based fishermen's associations, and we have a number of key alliances with like-minded organizations across the nation. These alliances have proven very helpful this year as we are confronting a number of legislative and regulatory activities which have or will have impacts on all of America's fishing communities. For example, we lobbied for inclusion of the fishing industry in the CARES Act. We participated in Congressman Huffman's nationwide listening tour on federal fisheries management. We joined the Responsible Offshore Development Alliance, to enable us to bring the knowledge and experience of our East Coast brethren to the conversation surrounding offshore wind off the West Coast. And we are also engaging on the recently released Ocean-Based Climate Solutions Act. The ability to coordinate, present a larger coalition of unified thoughts and ideas, and learn and share knowledge and experience of others has proven invaluable. As we all know, it is often difficult to get 2 fishermen participating in fishery to agree on anything. I think California's commercial lobster fishery is a perfect example of that. Lobstermen based in San Diego tend to disagree with a lot of thoughts and ideas from lobstermen in Santa Barbara on matters related to how the fishery is managed. That they are only 218 miles between the two doesn't matter. They might as well be located on different planets. It's my hope for the new year that I'm talking about US-based commercial fishermen and women and our dependent fishing communities, set aside our differences and focus on the looming threats to our livelihood, and that the number of alliances continue to grow and strengthen. What we do. PCFFA has led the fishing industry in protecting the rights of fishermen and fishing communities since 1976, when we were founded. We constantly fight for the long-term survival of commercial fishing as a productive livelihood and way of life. This includes being a watchdog on policies, proposed actions that may negatively impact freshwater life cycle of salmonids as well. How we do it. We do this by speaking truth to power. That was Zeke Grader's ultimate saying that has continued on through the current day, speak truth to power. And we do this when we engage with state legislatures, folks on the Hill, decision makers in federal and state government agencies that can, do, and will have an impact on our members' ability to feed the nation. As has been made very clear, especially during this year, when the beef, poultry, and pork industries were shuttered due to COVID-19, our members worked hard and often in dangerous conditions to feed Americans a healthy and sustainably harvested source of protein. I recently read that American wild-caught seafood is integral to the nation's food supply and to American food security. I think this message needs to be shouted from the rooftops and repeated till our voices are hoarse. So going to go into some specific issues now that we've had to deal with, talking about the COVID pandemic. What we've seen is, as I noted earlier, when I took this role, the pandemic was just hitting. So it impacted my ability to effectively lead this organization as I had hoped, because I wasn't able to go and meet with the members and do all the things that I would like to have done. Be that as it may, we've adopted a bi-weekly meetings with our members and anybody else who wants to join to talk about issues specific to our members, which I think has been very helpful. So increased opportunities. On March 27th, right before I took over, myself and my predecessor, Noah, sent a letter to the director of the California Department of Fish and Wildlife outlining a number of actions we would like to see implemented, which we believed would help ensure that our California members would be able to weather a rather unpredictable new storm. I have to give the department credit. They stepped up and took a number of actions which allowed increased access during the pandemic in order to help us get freshly sourced seafood to California seafood consumers. Where possible, this department, both with the state and during the FNC processes, worked with industry to push for a relaxing of rules, pointing to rules with regard to observers in particular. Alternative marking. Before the salmon season opened, our salmon season was scheduled to open on May 1st. And I remember getting calls up to about April 30th where our local salmon guys were freaked out because they were expecting only to get $2 a pound. The traditional markets, as we all know, were gone. And then when the fishery opened, it was very surprising seeing the price opened at $4.75 and has gone up from there. Direct marketing has definitely been beneficial to our members and members outside of our organization up and down the West Coast, to the extent that people have been able to figure out how to get seafood directly from the boat to the consumer's door. They benefited from that. Pop-up dockside markets, local things like that have proven to be very beneficial and very helpful to help our industry weather this unpredictability. And then we're currently working with local food system groups to connect them to our local fishing associations members to facilitate the purchase and potential processing of locally harvested seafood to be distributed to families and individuals in need. In terms of long-term impacts, and I spend quite a lot of time thinking about this, what will markets look like next month? What will they look like next year? What will they look like in 5 years? I think everyone who's listening, who is a harvester, would agree that the seafood supply chain will change as a result of the pandemic. To what degree, I think that remains to be seen. Once the pandemic is over, will folks who purchase seafood directly from a fisherman or local fishmonger continue to give them their business? I think it'll be incumbent on all of us involved in the industry to keep abreast of marketing trends and to proactively position ourselves to retain and expand these opportunities. In review, in terms of marine items that we've worked on this past year, excess. As noted, during the recently completed legislative session, the California legislature debated a bill called Assembly Bill 3030, which, and I quote, would declare to be the goals of the state by 2030 to protect at least 30% of the state land areas and waters, to help advance protection of 30% of the nation's oceans, and support regional, national, and international efforts to protect at least 30% of the world's lands and waters and 30% of the world's ocean. PCFFA led a group of California-based commercial fishing interests who partnered up with Recreational Fishing Group and others to form a coalition in opposition of AB 3030. Our primary argument surrounded the inherent definition provided for the word protect. The bill was ultimately defeated in the Senate Appropriations Committee. We were also concerned that a bill which could have profound impacts on our livelihoods and businesses was introduced without any consultation with the fishing industry at all. Unfortunately, shortly after the bill's defeat, our Governor Newsom, issued an executive order which announced a new state goal, which is to conserve at least 30% of California's land and coastal waters by 2030. I will note that the EEO uses the word conserve rather than protect. It's kind of, while we applaud that, I'm sure that folks that were pushing for AB 3030 do not. We'll continue to be engaged on that. The executive order goes on to detail a process by which to accomplish this goal, which includes the creation of what they're calling the California Biodiversity Coalition. We have been told that we will be a member of this coalition. Engagement. PCFFA remains engaged in the legislative and regulatory processes. As I sit here, we are preparing for the upcoming PFMC meeting, where we'll be asking the council to consider further actions which would allow our members and similarly situated fishermen in Oregon and Washington increased opportunities in the open access groundfish fishery. Simultaneously, we are preparing for the California legislative session next year, as well as engaging on potential fishery and water related issues that may arise during the lame duck session ongoing in Washington, D.C. On November 1st, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife regulations implementing the risk assessment and mitigation program went into effect. These regulations, as some will know, resulted from a lawsuit filed by the Center for Biological Diversity against the Department of Fish and Wildlife, in which we intervened, challenging the lack of an incidental take permit and the incidental taking of whales in the Dungeness crab fishery. Rather than risk the very real possibility of a complete shutdown of the state's commercial Dungeness crab fishery while the department secured the necessary ITP, a settlement was entered into which allowed fishing to continue, subject to developing a regulatory framework which outlines a comprehensive approach to the problem of whale entanglements. PCFFA and other industry partners offered numerous comments and suggested edits during the regulatory process. Few were taken, many were not. Amongst other things, the regs could result in a closure if a number of humpback or blue whales are entangled. Last week, we were able to see the impact of the ramp regulations as the opening of the Dungeness crab fishery off of the Central California coast was delayed until at least December 1st due to the presence of a large number of humpback whales in or near the fishing grounds. Truth be told, given the high number of whales, I think it was 48 in one of the zones, 50 in another, it was the right move given the severe consequences which could have resulted from an entanglement. The next risk assessment is scheduled to take place the week of the 23rd, and there is hope that the storm which blew through the coastal waters last weekend will have reminded the whales that it is fall and that perhaps they should start their migrations. While we have lost the Thanksgiving market, we will be encouraging Californians to enjoy their turkey on Thanksgiving, but to save the December holidays for California caught Dungeness crab. The Seafood Tariff Relief Program. PCFFA has been educating our members on the USDA Seafood Tariff Relief Program, and along with partner organizations has held webinars on this subject. I would encourage you to, if you have not applied for that, check out the USDA's website that covers that program. I think applications are due to be submitted by December 14th. With regard to freshwater items that have arisen during this past year, the one recent event that happened was the Aqua Bounty litigation. In 2015, the Food and Drug Administration approved Aqua Bounty's application to create and farm Aqua Advantage, which is a genetically engineered salmon capable of rapid growth. On November 5th, we learned that the court agreed with us and our co-plaintiffs that the FDA did not adequately assess the risk of harm to wild salmon runs before making a finding of no significant impact under NEPA, as well as failed to sufficiently consider whether their Aqua Advantage salmon may affect endangered wild salmon before deciding not to consult with NIMS or the Fish and Wildlife Service as required by the Endangered Species Act. While the court declined to accept our invitation to revoke the permit, we will remain vigilant should Aqua Bounty and the FDA try to move forward with the GMO salmon permitting. Continued vigilance. As always, there are a number of freshwater items which we continue to monitor. For example, just in the last month or two. Temperature management plans for many rivers in Northern California, which are important to salmon at all stages in their freshwater life cycle. The Bureau of Reclamation's proposed revisions to the Central Valley Project Improvement Act's 1993 interim accounting guidelines, and planned activities for the site's dam, etc. Looking ahead, a couple things to look at here. First, let's look at a big picture approach here. The federal government. As we sit here right now, we have a theoretic president-elect that one party is not acknowledging. We also have the balance of power in the Senate has yet to be decided. There's two runoffs in January for the two Georgia Senate seats that, depending on how that vote goes, could give full control of the legislative and executive branches to the Democrats. So it'll be important to see what happens with that, as that will surely have an impact on exactly how aggressive a legislative package can be from the incoming administration. State government, there is currently a vacancy on California's Fish and Game Commission, and we are hopeful that the future appointee will have a background in natural resource management. And then we are also mindful that some of our state agencies may lose folks to the incoming federal administration. So that's something that we're looking at from the big picture side. Looking ahead with regard to marine items, access. There are quite a few issues here or coming that could have profound impacts on our ability to ply our trades. For example, the Ocean-Based Climate Solutions Act. This was the bill that was introduced on October 20th and contains a number of provisions which are, well, alarming. For example, Title II of that act declares that the policy of the United States would be to prohibit any commercial, extractive, or destructive human activity in at least 30% of the ocean under U.S. jurisdiction by 2030. There are also titles which push offshore renewable energy and calls for strengthening conservation of marine mammals. Having said that, there are some provisions within the 324-page act which the fishing industry can get behind, but it's hard to reconcile provisions touting U.S. commercial fisheries and the benefits they provide with a number of provisions which, if all are implemented, could be the end of commercial fishing in the U.S. PCFFA and others are currently working hard in DC to bring some common sense to the table and not put the burden of reducing climate change and its impacts disproportionately on the backs of our nation's commercial fishing industry. Aquaculture opportunity areas. The recent announcement by National Marine Fisheries on the designation of Southern California and the Gulf of Mexico as aquaculture opportunity areas needs to be tracked. Commercial fishermen in those areas need to be engaged to ensure that siting decisions for aquaculture are made in ways that minimize impact to our operations. And there's also there's two proposed offshore finfish farms weeding their way through the process now. Pacific Ocean Aqua Farms has proposed an offshore finfish facility off of the Southern California coast, and there's another one, I believe, proposed in the Gulf of Mexico. And then offshore wind. In September of 2018, the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management identified three call areas off the California coast. California and a number of other fishing groups have remained engaged with both the Fed and state governments in an effort to ensure that the fishing industry has a seat at the table. This summer, we learned of a proposed project in state waters. It'll be imperative that we remain vigilant. PCFFA member Humboldt Fishermen's Marketing Association is partnering with the state of California to undertake a mapping exercise in an effort to ensure conflicts between offshore wind and fishing operations along the North Coast are minimized. To our friends in Oregon, we suspect that at least one call area below Cape Blanco will be announced in the not too distant future. I would strongly recommend those of you in Oregon following the activities of the BOEM Oregon Task Force. PCFFA was one of the first West Coast industry members of the Responsible Offshore Development Alliance. RODA, as they are more commonly referred to, is a national voice with connections in DC and their connections in DC is very helpful. The ability to learn lessons from the fishing industry on the East Coast, we are about 2 years behind them, has proven invaluable. You will see on the PowerPoint presentation that I've included their website and strongly encourage everybody to check them out. They're very effective in getting us engaged in the offshore wind world. And then management. PCFFA remains actively engaged in both the California and federal management processes. We continue to seek opportunities to expand opportunities for our members, and where necessary, try to minimize adverse impacts to those same members from proposed regulatory activities. I realize I'm kind of running out of time, but do want to briefly mention some of the freshwater items that we are anticipating addressing in the not too distant future. Klamath dam removal. We fully support our friends at Save California Salmon and their efforts in furtherance of the dam removal. We are appreciative of the work Congressman Huffman has put on this important matter, and we are hoping that efforts are taken forth to move forward on this. The Central Valley. PCFFA is involved in active litigation over 2 2019 biological opinions, one issued by NIMS addressing 3 salmon stocks, and one issued by the Fish and Wildlife Service with regard to the Delta smelt. Our primary claim is that the long-term operation of the Central Valley Project and the State Water Project would jeopardize the continued existence of ESA listed species as addressed. Number of items going on that other with Central Valley falling as well. The Potter Valley Project. Pacific Gas and Electric has a FERC license for the Potter Valley Project, which is a hydroelectricity project and includes 2 dams on the Eel River, the Scott Dam and the Cape Horn Dam, water diversion facilities, and a powerhouse. In 2019, PG&E implied that it wasn't going to seek an extension of its project license, which expires in 2022. Congressman Huffman convened a stakeholder group known as the Potter Valley Project Ad Hoc Committee. We are supportive of the actions of that committee and look forward to a solution which increases fish passage and serve other stakeholder needs as well. Columbia River projects, as with the Central Valley, number of projects ongoing here that we're tracking. PCFFA is actively engaged in the Columbia Basin Partnership and supports its efforts to improve salmon and steelhead runs in the Columbia River Basin. And that's what I got. Once again, I'm just going to close with this quote that we pulled out of the Ocean-Based Climate Solutions Act. American wild-caught seafood is integral to the nation's food supply and to American food security. I've included a link to our website. I will fall on the sword and clearly state that our website right now is not all that great. We are working with a web developer and plan to be updating that soon, subject to getting funding. And if anybody hears anything on this presentation or talk and they want to reach out to me and contact me directly and ask any questions or yell at me or do whatever it is you want to do, I've included my email address as well. So thank you for that. Hope everybody's having a wonderful day and hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving. Stay safe. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.